Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be here. Fabio, you said that this is your sixth out of the 46 such meetings. You have been a key player in leadership at the Commission and now at the IIC, and we look forward to 16 more of your being able to be at these kinds of meetings. But while this is Fabio's show, if you will, you're in the FCC's backyard, and so I want to take this opportunity to welcome everybody, in particular the distinguished guests from around the world. And those fellow regulators that I had an opportunity to visit with yesterday. We're used to handling distinguished visitors in this town. In the last couple of weeks, we've had Pope Francis, and we've had President Xi, and I hope that you all are being treated with a similar level of pomp and circumstance as you are here. Yesterday, I'd like to pick up on a theme that I started talking about yesterday, in that we all have the privilege right now of standing astride an historical development that has created the most powerful and pervasive platform in the history of the planet. And there's never been a technology like the internet, like high-speed broadband, to reach so many people so fast. And Fabio, the point that you made at the outset about the urgency and the difficulty of the problems that face this planet. One has to believe, and one has to be dedicated to using this platform like mankind has never seen before to attack those challenges with the same kind of urgency. You all know the statistics. Mobile networks cover about 95% of the world's population, and mobile internet service covers nearly half of the world's population. There are about 3 billion internet users worldwide, and while these numbers represent an astounding accomplishment, no other network ever having grown as expansively as quickly, there are still more than 4 billion people who are not connected to the internet. And in 49 of the least developed countries, over 90% of the population is not online. Our challenge is, how do we change that? 2 weeks ago, the United Nations General Assembly ratified 17 Sustainable Development Goals that succeed the Millennium Development Goals that expire at the end of this year. And one of those goals is targeted to quote, significantly increase access to information and communications technology and strive to provide universal and affordable access to the internet in least developed countries by 2020. In urging the ratification of these goals, President Obama told the General Assembly that, quote, this next chapter of development cannot just be about what governments spend. It has to harness the unprecedented resources of our interconnected world. The United States and other governments, along with the World Bank, NGOs, and major corporations, have sponsored a Global Connect initiative that seeks to connect an additional 1.5 billion people to the internet by 2020. It also seeks to make ICT a development priority equivalent to that of other more traditional types of national infrastructure. All of this recognizes the importance of human capital, alongside the capital that pays for fiber, cell towers, and internet exchange points. Capacity building, technical assistance, and the exchange of experience are as important, and very possibly more important, than the transfer of cold, hard cash. Although I would not like to disassociate myself with the importance of the transfer of cash. It's a source of great personal pride that the FCC staff participates so extensively in these contributions to the increase in human capital. Our International Bureau, headed by Mindell de la Torre, sitting right over here, engages in and coordinates activities that share our experiences with our regulatory counterparts and with other foreign officials, industry executives, and members of civil society. It provides information on our major regulatory initiatives on a continuing basis and provides expertise through our International Visitors Program, participation in the International Telecommunications Union's Development Bureau, and supplying instructors to the United States Telecommunications Training Institute, USTTI. There's more, but you get the idea. Non-cash capital is important to all of our futures and meeting the goals that we all ascribe to. The exchange of experiences, the conviction that there is significant value in describing and hearing how different organizations have approached similar challenges and opportunities, of course, is what brings us all together today. As it happens, the FCC has experiences that coincide very closely to the four themes of this conference: connecting the unconnected, the Internet of Everything, over-the-top convergence, and competition. So, consistent with the conviction that the exchange of experience has value, I will briefly, underline briefly, describe a few of our initiatives that should be relevant to those four themes. Let's start with the last theme, competition, because it has been the central tenet of the FCC's policy agenda. Simply put, I believe that competition is the most effective tool for advancing the public interest and promoting innovation and investment across the ICT sector. Our view on competition is clear. Where competition exists, we must work to protect it. Where greater competition can exist, we will encourage it. And where competition cannot be expected to exist, we will not hesitate to act to protect consumers and advance the public interest. Some of you may have heard me describe this approach as the regulatory seesaw, always accompanied by this motion. Because as competition goes up, regulation can go down. But the seesaw goes both ways. There's no better example of our commitment to competition than our open internet order. We strongly believe that the internet's open design is essential to its success. It allows innovation without permission, and it empowers the marketplace to pick winners and losers, not network gatekeepers. Preserving this competition at the edge of the network is linked directly to competition between network operators. And the simple truth is that competition for wired, high-speed internet access is limited in most U.S. markets. Internet service providers have the ability and the incentive to leverage that market power to their financial advantage by blocking, degrading, or favoring content. Our broadband networks are the indispensable infrastructure of our modern economy and society, and they should be subject to fully effective oversight. And that's why the Commission adopted common sense rules to assure the long-held American position that no one, either government or private sector, should interfere with public access to lawful content, applications, and services. The kinds of oversight that were designated in the Open Internet Order are a new regulatory model designed for new network times. I keep describing this oversight model as a referee on the field ready to blow the whistle. Our job isn't to substitute the FCC for what should be hard-fought negotiation and tough competition. It's up to the players to compete hard against their opposition, but make no mistake about it. If they violate the rules, we will blow the whistle. We are arbiters of the last resort, not the first resort. We will not micromanage networks as was done in the pre-broadband days. This means no retail rate regulation, no network unbundling, and no tariffs. In short, no utility-style regulation. I said all along that the two goals of our net neutrality proceedings were to protect internet openness and preserve incentives for massive private investment in better broadband networks. I believe that our rules strike that balance. Now, this point about private investment flows naturally into the second big theme of this conference, connecting the unconnected. In the United States, the primary means through which we achieve widespread deployment of robust broadband networks is private sector investment. Last year, the U.S. broadband providers invested $78 billion in network infrastructure. And over the previous 6 years, total private investment topped $420 billion. Since 2009, an additional 45 million Americans have adopted broadband. And today, 98% of all Americans have access to mobile 4G broadband. But despite this success, there are still plenty of areas in the United States where local demand by itself will not support the deployment of robust, modern, world-class networks. More than 50% of rural Americans lack access to broadbands at speeds of 25 megabits per second and up. About 10 million Americans can't get wired broadband at any speed, even if they wanted it. And while 98% penetration of 4G is impressive, you do the math, 2% times 300 million people means that there's 6 million people who are unserved. To close these digital divides, the FCC has launched a comprehensive effort to modernize our universal service programs, from supporting telephone service to supporting broadband service. These reforms are bearing fruit. Just last month, our new Connect America Fund concluded a process that will distribute $9 billion over the next 6 years to 10 private carriers. This investment will support the deployment of broadband networks to 7.3 million American consumers who today don't have that. But universal access isn't only geographic, it's also economic. We're in the process of reforming our universal service policies covering low-income consumers, a critically important effort when you consider that 48% of Americans earning $25,000 or less, only 48%, have broadband internet access to the tools that could help them grow, access to the tools that could help their kids do their homework, access to the ability to get online and get services. We have to change that dynamic. And when it comes to connecting the unconnected, I'd like to highlight and emphasize a too often overlooked challenge, which is connecting individuals with disabilities. A broadband connection, coupled with the power of internet protocol-based technology, has created a magnificent moment where we can apply these technologies to attack the challenges of individuals with disabilities. And we must meet that moment. Accessibility for individuals with disabilities should be considered at the beginning and every stage of the process by which new communications policies and technologies are considered, developed, and implemented. In the United States, we continue to implement a wide range of accessibility policies, including ensuring access to emergency information, closed captioning, and video description requirements for television programming, and making specialized equipment available for Americans who are deaf and blind. Not only do we want everyone connected, regardless of their capabilities, regardless of their location, regardless of their economic circumstances, but we also are all planning on connecting things that are not people, making sure that everything is connected. And that brings you to the third theme of your conference, the Internet of Everything. According to Cisco, there are currently 15 billion devices connected to the Internet, and that's expected to grow to 50 billion by 2020. You've all heard that statistic. Here's one maybe you haven't that's really mind-boggling. Cisco estimates that the Internet of Things will generate 8 trillion, that's with a T, $8 trillion in economic value over the next decade. We will see 2.1 trillion coming from innovation, 2.1 trillion from better asset utilization, 1.9 trillion from supply chain and logistics enhancement, 1.2 trillion from improved employee productivity, and 700 million from enhanced consumer experiences. And if you think the Cisco numbers are a little out of whack or sound crazy, McKinsey did their own analysis of the Internet of Things, and they're calling for $4 trillion to $11 trillion in economic benefits by 2025. When you're talking about trillions, you're talking about huge opportunity. And not surprisingly, seizing this opportunity will require tackling a whole new list of challenges. Going back to the point that Fabio started us off with, the challenges created, the challenges that we must deal with these new networks. One of these, of course, is cybersecurity. As the head of the FCC's Public Safety Bureau once said to me, you can think of 15 billion connected devices as 15 billion attack vectors. That's a pretty daunting prospect. In a free market democracy where our broadband networks are privately owned, we believe that the leadership on cyber must ultimately come from the private sector. But the government has an important participatory role in getting to that point. Under President Obama's leadership, our National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, led the development of a business-driven, proactive framework for voluntary cyber risk management. This is a tool designed for companies of all sizes that operate in diverse sectors and in a variety of dynamic, changing environments. It provides a common language for identifying, assessing, and responding to cyber risks and threats. The framework also represents a substantial commitment from the private sector. And so once you had this framework, once people were agreeing on concepts, then the question becomes, how do you implement it? And so, guided by the NIST framework, the FCC has initiated a series of individualized, face-to-face meetings with members of the communications sector to discuss each company's cyber risk management priorities, their methods to address them, and the effectiveness of these methods. The FCC's role is not to second-guess a company's business judgment or to micromanage implementation of the NIST framework. We simply care about one question. Are the cybersecurity protocols on which we have all agreed working? And if so, how? If not, why? And what are we discovering? It's a shared responsibility that must be a first priority for those who build and operate networks as well as those who oversee the activity. Of course, when you talk about ubiquitous connectivity, the most obvious policy issue that comes up is spectrum. Spectrum is the lifeblood of mobile broadband, and new approaches to spectrum management are needed if we are going to meet the ever-growing demand for spectrum that has resulted from the widespread adoption of mobile technology. The FCC has been working to develop a number of new tools in the Spectrum Toolkit, including expanded unlicensed use, flexible use policies, spectrum sharing, new bands for mobile broadband, including higher frequency bands and the digital dividend resulting from DTV transitions, which are ongoing in many of your countries. And of course, the upcoming incentive auction. And I keep a little clock in my head as to when that auction starts, and we're now about 170 days out from the start of the first reverse auction where we buy spectrum in, repackage it, and sell it in a forward auction. This month, the Commission will initiate a proceeding to spur the next generation of mobile technology. The fifth generation of mobile networks, 5G, could leverage both low-band and high-band spectrum to redefine wireless broadband, not only with greater speeds, but also the ability to handle multiple inputs coming out of the IoT world, as well as having minimal latency, which is going to be so crucial to so many of those additional applications. Global harmonization is critical to getting the greatest benefit out of the available spectrum. Harmonization fosters global roaming and helps manufacturers to take advantage of the economies of scale available in a global marketplace that results in lower prices and a wider range of broadband services and devices. Harmonization also helps prevent interference and facilitates coordination with neighboring countries. At the upcoming World Radio Communication Conference, we will support adding additional international allocations for mobile broadband, while allowing individual administrations the flexibility to design spectrum policies that meet their unique domestic requirements. So let me close here with the final of your four topics, the over-the-top convergence. As of the end of last year, more than 40% of U.S. households subscribe to online streaming services like Netflix. And this number is only expected to grow in the immediate future. Legacy providers continue to aggressively enter the game as well. New services like Hulu, for instance. And the explosion of online video raises a number of policy concerns, some of which I've already touched on, but it leads us back to spectrum, for instance. People aren't just streaming video to their TVs and computers. They're increasingly watching it on their phones. Americans look at their mobile device 2.8 hours per day. That's up from a half an hour in 2010. 2.8 hours a day. One wireless carrier recently told an analyst meeting that 60% of their traffic was video. If you need more convincing about the urgency of repurposing spectrum, there you have it. Those numbers are only continuing to go like this. And if spectrum remains like this, we've got a problem. The shift to over-the-top has become a major consideration in our merger review processes as well. Our General Counsel recently published a review of the considerations that emerged in the course of our examination of recent major media merger proposals. There are two takeaways. One, that competition between new over-the-top and traditional video distribution models was central to any analysis, any merger analysis. And two, that access to programming on competitive terms was seen as a crucial factor if over-the-top entrants were to be successful. There's a line of new OTT providers queuing up to expand video choice and increase consumer demand for broadband. And the connection between video choice and broadband, as you all know, is direct. The FCC wants to facilitate the development of that content, notably local content, that is high quality and serves the public interest. New communications technologies are central to 21st century economies. Effective communications policies will help promote a virtuous cycle of innovation, creating an environment where investment, competition, and innovative products are delivered, which drives, again, in a virtuous circle to reinforce one another, to create a healthy, growing, and vibrant communications ecosystem. It's been my honor to share with you some of our experiences. I've benefited from the opportunity to learn from so many of you since I've been in this job. Working together, we can harness the power of broadband technology to expand opportunity and to improve the lives of people across the globe. So I wish you the best for a good conference. Fabio, thank you very much for inviting me. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Have a good day.